So I found an interesting thing to share from Manilius from the Astronomica with regard to insight on how the sun and the moon were and eclipses were generally seen, and even magical practices that were associated with it. At least one example here. So I'll speak a little bit about myself as my cards business and different things that we have going on, and then I'll get into that. Hello, Ethan here. As an astrology student, I've just finished year 2 of Austin Coppock's excellent and challenging 3-year course. I focus on ancient Hellenistic astrology, whole sign, whole house, tropical, traditional rulers, but with an awareness of outer planets. I'm a professional card, candle, and root worker. My wife and I launched our business, Myself as My Cards, in 2019, where you can find our card reading material on YouTube. We participate in over a dozen shows a year and also do private client readings. See myselfasmycards.com for more information. I added Myself as My Stars in 2024 for astrology, and I'm developing Myself as My Spark for candle reading content. Candle reading is fascinating. Leela and I have read 9,000 candles at least at this point, no joke, for clients all around the world. So we have interesting things to share about that discipline. In Austin's final year, my cohort dives into the classics. I've got the required reading and some extras, and I'm pre-reading before classes ramp up in April. I'll be vlogging my journey and discoveries, so comment or suggest anything that piques your interest that you feel might relate to mine. Today I wanted to share something about Marcus Manilius, a Roman poet and astrologer from Syria who lived in the 1st century AD. He's one of the earliest surviving written examples of astrological text. He wrote a 5-book poem titled Astronomica. He talks about the spherical shape of the Earth and the moon's bellying orbit. The Earth's roundness had been known since ancient Greece, starting with Pythagoras around 500 BC, who deduced it from the moon's shape, and Anaxagoras later explained eclipses, further confirming via the Earth's shadow on the moon. Around 350 BC, Aristotle cited observational evidence, and within a century, Aristarchus and Aristophanes even calculated the Earth's size. Let's also keep in mind that there were cultures that also understood these principles in ancient India and so forth. Also that to speak one's mind about these things often got you banished or imprisoned, so perhaps writing it down or putting it in that kind of solid form wasn't the wisest thing to do sometimes. I'll read an interesting excerpt from the Astronomica that sheds light on some of the practices of the time. So it's apparent that this guy was well-traveled and knew people and talked to people, had knowledge about other lands that stretched far enough for him to compare examples of the experiences of the planets and the sun and the moon and stuff like that you would have at various given places at various given times. He states here, that's why it's impossible to behold all the constellations in every part of the world. You'll never find Canopus shining until you have crossed seas and come to the shores of Rhodes. But those who dwell beneath that brilliant star will look in vain for the Bear, because they inhabit regions on Earth in the lower flanks, and because lands which bulge in between rob them of this part of the heavens, and block their view of it. The Earth makes you, O Moon, a witness to its roundness. When at night your star is plunged into utter darkness and suffers eclipse, it does not bewilder all nations at the same time, but first the lands of the Orient miss your light. Then the place is situated beneath the middle sky, and late is the brass clashed among the peoples of the West. If the earth were flat, you would rise for the whole world at once, and the failure of your light would be lamented by every land at the same time. But since the shape of the Earth follows a smooth curve, the moon appears to these lands first, and then to those, rising and setting simultaneously, because it's carried along a bellying orbit and equally combines a downward with an upward slope as it rises above some horizons, leaving others behind. And that's natural to us now. So the bit about the brass clashes among the people of the West, right? So there's a note here. Some people believe that lunar eclipses were caused by magicians whose incantations charmed down the moon from the heaven. So they raised a tremendous din by clashing together brass objects to prevent the moon hearing the incantations and thus nullify the magic. So I was curious about this practice and if it was still practiced in areas of the world today. And I did find that there are examples of this in the Philippines. The Bakunawa. I'll leave a link to an article that shows not just that serpent, but multiple serpents and even bird-like creatures. Essentially, creatures composed of several different types of animals together, which is usually a dragon or some sort of creature like that basically swallows the moon, and then the people, in retaliation, they bang on pots and pans and then drums, and they make a bunch of noise to stop this creature from swallowing the moon. And in the story of the Bakunawa, there were reeds planted, like bamboo planted on the moon that resembled scars of its battles with the serpent. And that as long as, because you can see those darker spots on the moon, and as long as the bamboo reeds were there, they could be assured that they will be successful in chasing off this dragon, and that the moon will return to them. So then serpent creature, dragon, the lunar nodes, right? So this connects to lots of places all over the world. Of course, we know of the ancient Indian connections. That's where we're familiar with. That's where we're told in the English-speaking world that these understandings of the eclipses and nodes come from. But obviously, that's connected to lots of parts of the world that were aware of eclipses and calculated them and had traditions that are connected to that. So I thought that was fascinating. I thought I'd share that. And that's the type of stuff that I'd like to share here, at least for now, as I slowly ramp up the idea of building an astrological practice and become familiar with these things and sharing it with the people that wish to hear it. So thanks for listening.